Human Star Destroyer blitzed from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, shitting fusion bombs and plasma death at all alien targets, painting galactic depths with smears of colorful debris. Stars winked out as strange ion shields crumpled before weapons of humiliation that humanity had been working on for eons, long ago ceding to outer reaches ahead of now useless toadying to galactic councils, hoping that all-consuming surprise counterattack would behead the scaly foe in one whirlwind stroke. Amidst dazzling carnage echoed a deathly silence in Hall of Galactic Council, interrupted only by sharp gasps as flickery hologram popped into view, showing distinct lines of cloaked human dreadnoughts still freshly caked with bits of alien wreckage. "That's not possible," Marek whispered. "The great battle was over generations ago. Humans fled to the outer dark after surrender." "The surrender was always a feint to buy us time," David boomed, face grim in its awful honesty. "Don't act shocked, Lemnorian. Your fleets destroyed our worlds without provocation. Now our scattered remnants have come together to strike back, now that our last superweapon is complete. But it could destroy entire planetary systems. So did your death fleets. But we aren't just looking for destruction. We're taking back our seat on this council, one you revoked. And to guarantee human voice as galactic policymakers, we're willing to unleash our ship-sized apocalypse on any opposition. Vote us back to the council, or more of your kind will die thrashing like slaughtered insects in hard vacuum." The chamber erupts into a din of shouting voices, tentacles and pincers waving in outrage. A booming silence cuts through the clamor as David raises his hand. The chatter dies down. The Nemesis was a prototype dreadnought, built by a rogue human faction over 100 years ago during the Great Galactic War, David explains. His voice echoes through the vast hall. "We thought it was destroyed. Evidently, some of its tech survived." "What exactly made it so dangerous?" Marek demands, leaning forward. His reptilian eyes narrow to slits. David takes a breath. The Nemesis carried an experimental weapon called a void cannon. A single shot could wipe out an entire planet. Gasps of horror ripple through the assembled delegates. Knowledge of the Nemesis and void cannon was suppressed after the war. We couldn't risk it falling into the wrong hands. "And yet you humans kept it secret all this time," Marek snarls, pounding a clawed fist on his podium. "Even from your allies." "It was need to know only," David says evenly. "If word got out, every two-bit pirate and galactic tyrant would have turned the galaxy inside out looking for it." "So how do you explain this attack?" David rubs his chin. "I suspect someone uncovered the Nemesis's lost blueprints, and now they're trying to rebuild the ship and void cannon." A grim silence falls. Then a willowy, ethereal counselor speaks up. "This council must act quickly to prevent another Nemesis from being constructed. I propose we send an elite team to investigate the Kiltar attack and recover any intelligence on this new threat." "Agreed," David says. "I volunteer to lead the mission." "As do I," Marek growls. "I will not let humanity's folly endanger us all, not again." The council takes a vote and the motion passes unanimously. As the meeting adjourns, Marek corners David in the hallway. "I don't trust you, human," the Lemnorian hisses. "Your species has a habit of keeping deadly secrets." "We've made mistakes," David admits, "but I'll do whatever it takes to stop the Nemesis, I swear it." The two unlikely allies stare each other down for a long moment, then turn and stride off in opposite directions. They have a galaxy to save, or doom. As David and Marek stepped out from the shuttle onto the ashen surface of Kiltar, an eerie silence greeted them. The once bustling mining colony had been reduced to piles of rubble and scorched earth. Spherical holes pockmarked the landscape where buildings once stood, as if some cosmic scoop had carved out perfect orbs of matter. Marek pulled out his scanner and swept it across the devastation. "These voids, they're too precise to be from conventional weapons," the Lemnorian muttered, his voice tight. "It has to be the void cannon." David knelt down and scooped up a handful of dust, watching it sift through his fingers. Entire structures wiped from existence in an instant. What have we unleashed? The scanner beeped urgently and Marek's eyes widened. I'm picking up a faint energy trail. It leads away from the colony, towards that asteroid field. The team followed the signal, weaving their shuttle through the tumbling rocks until a glint of metal caught their eye. Nestled in a large asteroid was an airlock door. Looks like someone's been busy, David said as they docked and prepared to enter. Inside, the stark corridors were lined with advanced weaponry and machinery. Clearly this was no ordinary base. As they crept forward, a voice boomed out from the shadows. Well, well, the galaxy's most wanted, waltzing right into my home. A man in battle-scarred armor stepped into view, flanked by a dozen heavily armed mercenaries. Elias Crone, at your service, he said with a mocking bow. Marek aimed his blaster. You're the one who attacked Kiltar with a weapon that should have stayed dead and buried. Crone chuckled darkly. Ah, yes, the Nemesis. Quite the ship. Turns out someone kept the blueprints tucked away all these years, and now I'm going to rebuild it and make a hefty profit in the process. You can't, David shouted. That kind of power for sale to the highest bidder? It'll tear the galaxy apart. Does it look like I care? There's always war. Always someone willing to pay for the biggest gun. Crone leveled his own rifle at them. And I can't have you getting in my way. All hell broke loose. Energy bolts crisscrossing the room as David and Marek dove for cover. They fired back, their team moving to flank the mercenaries. Smoke began to fill the air from ruptured conduits. In the chaos, Crone slipped away down a side passage. As the last mercenary fell, David sprinted after him. But when he reached the hangar, Crone's ship was just a fading glint of exhaust. David swore and turned back to find Marek crouched over a sparking data terminal. Bastard wiped the system, but the core looks intact. If we're lucky, it might tell us where he took the Nemesis plans. David connected the scorched data core to the analysis terminal with a heavy clunk. Marek paced behind him, his clawed feet clacking on the polished floor of the Council's secure lab. A swarm of Galactic Council scientists descended on the damaged device, tentacles and appendages working furiously to splice wires and reroute circuits. How long is this going to take? Marek growled. Every second we waste, Crone gets closer to unleashing that monstrosity. Patience, David said, watching lines of alien code scroll across the screen. If we rush this, we could lose the data forever. Hours bled into days as the scientists toiled over the heavily encrypted files. Fragments of schematics and coordinates flickered in and out of focus, teasing at the secrets locked within. Finally, a hollow projection snapped into place above the terminal. It was the Nemesis, but not as they remembered. Strange technology bristled from its hull. Some David recognized from distant worlds, others completely alien. The void cannon loomed beneath like a slumbering beast. By the stars, Marek breathed. He's not just rebuilding it, he's making it even more powerful. The image zoomed in on a timer, the numbers tumbling down to 0. David felt his blood run cold. 3 days, that's all the time we have before it launches. The council chamber erupted into a cacophony of shouts and arguments as David and Marek presented their findings. Some demanded an immediate preemptive strike on Crone's base. Others recoiled at the thought of plunging the galaxy into another war. As the debate raged on, David's wristcom blinked with an incoming message. It was text only from an unknown sender. I have information you need about Crone. Come to the coordinates below alone. Tell no one. The fate of the galaxy depends on it. David slipped out of the chamber, his mind racing. It could be a trap, but what choice did he have? He had to take the risk. Where do you think you're going? Marek stepped out of the shadows, blocking his path. I have to do this alone, David said, meeting the Lemnorian's gaze. Trust me. Marek's eyes narrowed, but he stepped aside. Don't make me regret this, human. David nodded and strode towards the hangar, the coordinates burning in his mind. He prayed he wasn't making a terrible mistake. David's shuttle touched down on the barren, rocky expanse. A rusty haze hung in the air, cast by the sickly light of a dying star. He stepped out, hand on his blaster, scanning for any sign of the mysterious informant. A figure emerged from behind a jagged outcropping. David tensed, then froze in shock as the man's face came into view. "Crone?" he sputtered. "What's this about? What game are you playing?" Crone held up his hands. "No games, not anymore." His voice was haggard, his eyes haunted. "I was wrong, Simmons. The Nemesis, it's too powerful. The upgrades, the alien tech, it's made the ship unstable, uncontrollable." David narrowed his eyes. "Why should I believe you?" "Because if that thing launches, it won't just destroy its targets. It'll kill everyone on board and God knows how many more." Crone tossed a data chip at David's feet. "Those are the coordinates for the Nemesis location, and the codes to disable its weapon systems. But you have to hurry. It's set to launch in hours, and the crew, they won't listen to me. They think this is their great purpose." David scooped up the chip, mind racing. He tapped his comm. "Merrick, I need you to get a message to the Council. Tell them to scramble every ship they've got and converge on these coordinates. I'm sending them to you now." "What's going on, Simmons? Did you find the informant?" "I did, and you're not going to believe who it is." Ships dropped out of hyperspace around the Nemesis like silver fish circling a monstrous shark. Marek squinted out the transport's view screen at the patchwork behemoth, its hull bristling with weaponry. "I still don't trust him," he growled. "Crone's intel checks out," David said, "and right now he's the best chance we have." He turned to the strike team, their faces grim in the dim light. "Our target is the central control room. We get in, input the shutdown codes, and get out." The ship shuddered as it latched onto the Nemesis hull. The team poured out into the stark corridors, weapons ready. Shouts echoed from up ahead, followed by the bark of blaster fire. "So much for stealth," Marek muttered. They fought their way through clouds of acrid smoke and knots of fanatical crew members, the deck shuddering under their feet as the Council ships bombarded the Nemesis's shields. In the chaos, David almost missed the lone figure slumped against a bulkhead. "Crone," he knelt beside the wounded man, wincing at the charred hole in his chest. "What happened?" "My own men," Crone rasped, didn't take kindly to my change of heart." He coughed, flecks of blood spattering his lips. "David, the reactor, I rigged it to blow. You have to get your people out." "What about you?" Crone shook his head. "No time, go, finish this." His eyes slid shut, breath rattling out in a final sigh. David squeezed his shoulder, then stood. "Marek, we need to move now." Klaxons howled as they raced back to the transport, the Nemesis shaking itself apart around them. They barely made it out before a blinding flash seared the void. The Nemesis vanished in a roiling ball of plasma, taking its dark legacy with it. In the council chamber, medals gleamed on the chests of the heroes. Speeches were made, praises sung. But as David looked out at the sea of faces, relief and triumph warring in their eyes, a chill crept up his spine. This was not the end. As long as the thirst for power darkened hearts and minds, there would always be another Nemesis waiting in the wings, and he would be there to meet it, no matter the cost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.